internet on my laptop to work. So yeah, if I don't see you,
Testing it.
Oh.
Excuse me?
Oh no, sorry. I'm just reacting. The TV over here just turned on.
Oh.
Dial.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Inclusivity Committee meeting. It is 5:31 p.m. on October 25th, 2022. And I guess we'll get started. So in attendance, we have Mayor Jones, City Manager Chris Workman, Inclusivity Committee members, Christopher McMorrin, Zena Allen, Councillor Nielsen, and myself, Councillor Andrade. And we can go ahead and move on to the approval of the minutes from August 23rd and September 27th. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at that? And if so, are there any edits that people would like to make?
Looks good to me.
Yep.
Cool beans. Okay. Zena, were you going to say something?
Oh, I just said the same.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. In that case, seeing no objection, the minutes for those meetings have been approved. So now on to urgent business. Does anyone have any urgent business they would like to share or discuss at the moment? Seeing none, we'll move on to business. And let's start with a couple quick updates and announcements. So scroll down here. So an update on the Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation and the Veterans Day proclamation that we worked on in our past couple meetings. They were approved by City Council with minimal edits, so that's awesome. The Veterans Day event that we are working on with Eric Neiman and Interfor, American Legion, and the Scout Lodge. So we got approval for a travel stipend for Dr. Robert Bartlett, and that got increased to $600 to account for hotel expenses and such. With respects to the committee vacancy, the City Council agreed to pause on filling the vacancy until we've had the opportunity as a committee to discuss the topic that we're going to discuss tonight, which is retention of committee members and recruiting new committee members. And those appointments will be made at the start of the calendar year. I'm going to pause for a moment. Are there any questions about any of those so far? Okay, and please feel free to raise your hand or, briefly interrupt if you have any questions and I don't see you. Everyone's smaller on my phone. Okay, so back to updates, the bias response initiative. So as a recap, we, with the COG, the regional group comprised of Benton, Lincoln, and Lynn counties, hired a consultant, and the consultant group did some focus groups in each of the counties, and then they sent out a survey to city officials, elected officials, and city staff. We filled that out, and they're going to recap the findings of the focus group and presumably the surveys, at a bias response summit, which is coming up Wednesday, November 2nd at noon, from noon to 1 p.m. It is a Zoom event, and the registration link is on the updates. And then if you have any questions, you could reach out to the consulting group. They could answer those questions. And also back to something, I just wanted to bring up the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. That's coming up in December, on December 3rd. And so back in July, we had agreed as a committee to spotlight this day. And so briefly, I'd like us to talk about whether the committee would continue to still would like to spotlight this day and how. And that includes the proclamation. We don't, from what I could tell, going back to the 80s, mid to late 80s, the council hasn't had a proclamation brought to them. So if we wanted to do a proclamation, how would we want to do that? Who would be able to write one? Or did we want to do something with like educational opportunities? So I know Zena had some thoughts on this. Zena, did you want to speak about
Yeah, I mean, I worked at the Disability Equity Center, so there's definitely, give me a sec, feeding the dog. Okay. There's definitely a lot of options there. There's a lot of options to connect with people with disabilities or things like that. I reached out to some people and they seem interested. I think it would just be a process of kind of talking about disability and what that would mean, and I don't know how that probably impacts people in our community. So yeah.
To clarify, are you suggesting like that someone have a speak, like to do like a lecture of some sorts or presentation?
I mean, there's always options for presentations, but it really kind of depends on what our community wants. I think like a lot of equity centers and things like that right now, we're swamped, but I think that there's a lot of people again that live in our community with disabilities, so it would just be kind of a question of what would we like to do, what would us as a city like to do, I guess.
Yes, definitely. And I guess I was just trying to get a better idea of what you thought that we should be doing. Any other thoughts about this?
The only thing I'll mention is that I think that it's probably too late for us to develop a proclamation for this year for that day. So I think we would need to do something else, which also we would probably come up on a time limit, given that we only have one meeting, if any, between now and that day.
Mm-hmm.
The November newsletter is already prepared and going out, and that December newsletter typically goes out, that very end of the week of November. So it'll, the chances of people getting it before the 3rd are kind of questionable. If it was, the 8th or the 9th, I'd say for sure, but even getting something in the newsletter and people getting it before the 3rd would be a maybe, but not a for sure thing. So the newsletter probably isn't going to be a great avenue to get any type of message out either. So that kind of leaves the website or social media. If the city wanted to, post something on the website or provide some type of information on the website and then post something on social media to point people back to the website. We just need to know what kind of content the committee wanted there if you want to go that route.
Awesome. On that note, we would need to have something approved by council, right?
Not necessarily. One thing that we could consider is if there's pre-existing events that are going to happen, maybe we can ask the city staff to advertise it and highlight those things as the time approaches. I'm guessing we're not going to be able to pull anything together on our own.
Yeah, I mean, I could do a search, or if somebody on the committee wanted to do a search of events or speakers or anything happening in the region, or even anything happening at the national level, if it was, you know, a live broadcast or something like that. Someone gather information, I'd be happy to pull it together and put it on the website and point people kind of, I'm thinking just like a resource kind of clearinghouse of information surrounding that day.
We can do that. There's like lots of information, and given Oregon and its actual history with disability right and equity, it could be a really interesting thing. And we could also link it back to, I mean, I know Philomath isn't Corvallis, but you know, there's a lot of history there from the Student Disability Union and Lynn, Benton counties, you know, essentially the COG in that in those areas. There's been a lot of disability equity work, so I can definitely see what's going on. And yep.
Okay. So then, yes, I do
I just say
recognize
something?
time. Sure.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
I was just saying, I
gonna-
just found the theme. I just found the theme for this year's International Day of Disabled Persons for 2022. Not all disabilities are visible. Sorry, not all disabilities are visible. So that's the theme for this year. For this, that's kind of an interesting piece. So yeah, I agree. If we could publicize something on social media that is being a training or a speaker or something of some sort that would encourage people to maybe focus a little bit more on this theme for this year and how it relates to us and how we relate to people that do not have visible disabilities and understanding them better. I think that could be really advantageous via social media.
Definitely. Thank you for that. So agreed about timing issues, and that education in this manner sounds like a great idea. I think it's best if we have people volunteer now to, like, in a subcommittee almost kind of way, noting that all of us here are committee members. That means only 2 of us can participate in doing that, and then whomever else wants to participate who's not an official committee member. So do we have any volunteers? Awesome. Thank you, Zena.
Just
Thank you.
muted.
Oh, Councillor Nielsen, are you volunteering also?
I'd be willing to work with Zena if she and I could maybe brainstorm together, or we can pass ideas back and forth if you're agreeable with that, Zena.
Awesome. Cool beans. Okay, thank you so much, Zena and Councillor Nielsen. And Chris, how do we go about, I guess, approving language and stuff like that? We will have time to do that at our next meeting, correct? This is me processing out loud and asking for verification.
Yeah, depending on when that next meeting's going to be, I wanted to bring up looking at the calendar for November and December and just looking at those dates, just with the holiday. And
we'll have to move up the November date.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with if Teresa and Zena were to put information together and send that to me. I can forward it out, or I could even, have that put onto a website and send out kind of a preview to the committee and get individual feedback. If it's coming from staff and we're getting individual feedback from members of the committee, we can make up that having to wait for another meeting. I'm just thinking we'd probably want to get something out, with at least a week or two prior to the day, just so that people can plan and make arrangements and know a little bit ahead of time of what, what other events or things might be taking place.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you very much. Okay, so Zena and Counselor Nielsen will put something together and send it to Chris, who will then send things out to the committee, and we can individually give feedback to Chris and making sure it all happens a week or two before the actual day. Does that sound good, everyone? Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Okay, so now some quick announcements. Happy Queer History Month, which is the month of October. I know it's a little out of order because I'm going to skip down to announcement number 6 now. But this first announcement also has information on Oregon State University's webpage, their diversity webpage. If you want to learn more about Queer History Month. And then jumping down to announcement number 6, I have, that's not right. There is an event coming up tomorrow, October 26th, 4 to 6 p.m. in person and remotely. In person, it's at Kagu Ihit Mana Ina House at Oregon State University. There's limited space, but if you want to attend virtually, there's a registration link, and the speaker is Teresa Siagatonu, and the event is celebrating Queer History Month and honoring the people, land, and seascapes of Oceania. It looks like an awesome event. Hopefully some of us can attend. And then I'm going to jump back up to announcement number 2, which is our Veterans Day event. As a reminder, it is Wednesday, November 9th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Flem Scout Lodge and or live streaming with a YouTube link. Is that the city's YouTube, Chris?
No, it's not. I don't believe.
Okay, just curious. And as a reminder, the event is free, but is encouraged to bring a canned food item for donation to the Plymouth Food Bank. Also that night at 7 p.m., the 2022 Champion of Food series with the presentation on the Calapooya seasonal round at the Confluence is happening at the library. And again, we were talking about this earlier about it being a conflict with the Veterans Day event. I do know that this will be recorded. I am not sure if the Veterans Day event is being recorded, but that one is definitely being live streamed. And then on to announcement number 4, in the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration that happened at Oregon State University was amazing. I highly recommend watching it. There's a link to the recording. Dr. Michael Benitez Jr., absolutely amazing. And then on to the 5th announcement, Travel Oregon Resources. There is a travel guide to Oregon Indian Country. That link is in the meeting packet. And there's also an Oregon Accessible Trails link there so that people who might have some mobility issues can still enjoy beautiful outdoor areas. So that's it for the updates and announcements. So now on to the big discussion of committee retention and recruitment, unless there's any other questions about the updates and announcements. Seeing none. Okay, so basically we've discussed this a lot about how committee membership has decreased. And with that, it's become more difficult to do some of the things that we want to do. we're still doing excellent work. And also, it would be nice to have more people to be able to lessen the load on each of us. So, what are our main issue here that we're trying to look at is what are potential reasons for the decrease in membership, and how can this be improved upon? They're not necessarily problems, it's just how can we better support our committee members and make a more welcoming environment, if that's what it is, or or like letting people know that we're even here, those kinds of things. And how can we recruit more members? So we've kind of talked about some of the potential issues before, and I've listed those here. Things that we can think about and discuss include things involving committee structure, meeting structure, committee business, human interactions, and anything else that people would like, might think be what's contributing to these patterns. So would someone like to begin with that, answering that question of why we think membership is decreasing?
I'll just mention, I haven't had it much, people don't direct this towards me, but a few people have. I think that one of the things is just by being more productive, having the community see us, like doing these things, moving forward with the objectives that we set forward. I think that's going to start paying dividends. I think that we're starting on a good path, and that I think I've heard one person mention that they felt like we were spinning our wheels, and so they just choose not to continue to participate and haven't showed up. So I just think that doing some good work will lead to gaining interest and making the committee seem more visible and more accessible as well. That's my thought.
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts that people would like to share?
I guess I just would sort of echo that a little bit. It feels, I mean, I think, this is a new committee and a very new sort of idea for our town. So I think a little bit of working out the kinks is natural, but I think there's to some degree, it feels sort of like the whole, if you build it, they will come. And it feels like we still haven't really built it. Like, I think as the mayor said, I think we're making some progress, but it does feel like kind of one of those things of like, almost like the snowball effect of like, we just kind of need to show what we're about and to show why this is a good thing to be a part of, and to demonstrate to the community what this committee is and stands for. And then I think that can help, because people want to be a part of something, meaningful and important and exciting. And I think our job is to sort of make this committee be meaningful and do meaningful work. And then I think that will help attract and retain folks to be a part of that work. I know that is easier said than done, but I do think that's part of it. And I'm not trying to disparage the work we have done at all. I like we said, I think we're getting onto a good path. But I think that just doing the work is a key to kind of getting people to see the value of being a part of this.
Thank you for that. Councilor Nielsen?
And also, I think any successful committee that I've been a member of, that I felt that we've made some progress towards some common goals has been foundational on relationships and mutual respect and positivity. And I think we're doing, as Christopher and Chas have mentioned, that, you know, we're just beginning this, and it's getting the ball rolling is a difficult process, and goals and objectives and what that looks like and how to put it into action. But I do feel as we go forward, accomplishing some worthwhile goals in a positive way, and encouraging and reaching out and being a little more visual and a little more demonstrating that inclusivity and reaching out and being a little more public in what we are accomplishing. I think that could have a positive force. I think that opportunity to branch out and open up our eyes to opportunities to reach out to, within the community, to people that are not participating. I think that could be really in conjunction with accomplishing something and working towards a common goal. I think all those are really good things, but I do think that time is so precious for all of us. And so we want to feel that the time is being used effectively and that we're making a difference and that we're connecting with others in a way that makes Philomath a better place to live.
Thank you for that. Zena, did you want to say anything on this?
No.
Okay. Then I will ask a follow-up question. About reaching out to people not participating. Councilor Nielsen, I guess, are you suggesting that we do that as individual committee members or specifically as a committee? Because like I know in our objectives and such and goals that there is a thing on there, a goal or whatever on there that we like write kind of like an introductory letter and send that to organizations and groups to kind of let them know who we are and what we're about, and to kind of invite them to participate and or like work with us. Did you mean that's more so, or just curious?
So I don't remember the date. That Kyle Emil came to who did that into what was the topic of his? I think it was on the 20th. Let me look it up real quick. An evening of community dialogue. It was held at the Lutheran Church on the, I don't remember the date. The 20th, October 20th. What I loved about that piece was dialogue is a way that we get to not only get to know each other, but that we get to know our cares and concerns, and we get to know our desires and our passions and our interests, and we connect with each other. I think as an inclusivity committee, being out in the community and creating opportunities for that dialogue and that connection to occur, I think the more we connect with others and the more they feel a common goal or commonality with us, the easier it will be for them to feel comfortable in joining. Does that make sense?
It does. And I appreciate that and totally agree with that. I guess, so the way I see it with the like, it's that Ouroboros of there's only so many of us in the committee, and being able to do that outreach and that having that dialogue, like just thinking about like all of that, and that being on a couple people, you know, and
Mhm.
just how, and the lack of emotional and physical and mental capacity to be able to do that successfully, I guess. I totally agree with you. That is something that we should be aiming for. I guess I'm looking for ways in which I'm just kind of at a loss as to how to be able to do this effectively,
Mhm.
and want to know if you have any suggestions about that. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I work with Yvonne McMillan on the music for the community. She does the bluegrass jams once a month, and then there's a country dance she does the first Friday.
Mhm.
And it's surprising. People come to those things from all over Albany, and we had people from, I don't remember what, Millersburg or somewhere. I knew, but there's a whole lot of people coming from all over just to attend either the jam session or the dances. And then I didn't attend because I'm still in Wyoming, that event with Kyle Emil, but I thought what an interesting concept to have a forum in which people could just come and converse and find out about people of various opinions and religions and intellects and points of view and political affinities and all. I mean, it was just a really good idea. I watched his TED Talk. I don't know if did anyone else watch that? No. Well, anyway, I did. It was really good. And I thought, oh my goodness, that
It's my list.
post-COVID, that ability to connect is really necessary, you know, to make those connections and feel involved and feel a part of something beyond yourself. And I think the world is hungry for that, to feel connected. So what do I think it looks like? I reached out to the person at LBCC that sponsored Kyle's visit to our the Willamette Valley, and I can't remember his name now at LBCC, but he emailed and said, once I get back in town from Wyoming, he would love to meet with me and see if there was some way. He has a couple ambassadors at LBCC that would love to work with any groups that would be interesting in having a chance to converse and having people come from various backgrounds to have just that conversation and connection with each other. And I thought, I haven't, of course, I'm still in Wyoming, but when I come back, I'm going to contact him to see maybe that is something that will open doors to people feeling that there is inclusivity is multifaceted. Inclusivity is for everyone. It is not just for a small group of few committee members. Thinking inclusive, you know, thinking with that mindset encompasses everyone. That's what inclusivity is. It's a part of all of us as we try to reach out and connect. I'm getting a little lectury, so I'll stop.
No, I think you're just stating the truth. And it's good for the community to hear who are watching, like they're unaware. It's true. You're all welcome. Thank you for that. That gives a lot of things to think about. Are there any more thoughts on this? You know, things that we can do to improve committee retention, recruitment strategies?
One thought that I have is that we may want to consider not going hog wild on recruitment right now, because it may be that we want to get our feet under us a little bit better before we, you know, if we saw 20 recruits and then all of a sudden they all came and got frustrated because of the processes and stuff, because we might lose them all again. And I
Mhm.
probably are only going to get one chance to engage any one person before we lose them.
Mhm.
So that's just a thought, and I don't know the answer to that, but
Thank you. I guess if there aren't any additional thought, or Christopher, was your hand raised?
No, sorry.
No. Oh, that's okay. I just saw movement. So if there isn't any more thoughts on this in particular, I suppose the thing that I probably should have included in here was more thought on the committee vacancy, and wanting to get a better understanding of what it is that we are doing with that vacancy, or what we recommend to council that they do with this vacancy and filling it. And wanting to make sure that we are good on committee structure, because I know that I have heard several different things about committee structure, and I also have my own thoughts about them, which are separate from the other things that I have heard from others about committee structure. So I'm going to ask a couple questions here. One, how do we think official committee membership is working with 4 volunteer community members and 3 city council members? Do we think it's working? Do we want to shift overall official committee membership number, adjust the ratios of volunteer community members to city council members, or are we good? Christopher?
I think it's like a little hard to say just because most of the time I've been here, we haven't had the full 4 community members. So it's hard to say what exactly that would feel like. I mean, I think a couple meetings we've had 4, but like I would definitely like to see more community member, non-city council member participation, but 4 might be plenty. I just honestly don't feel like I really have a good feel for that. I'm grateful for the city council voices, just because, you all deal with this type of, decision making more often. So it's good to kind of get that perspective. So I wouldn't want to sacrifice. I mean, maybe we'd have 2 instead of 3. I don't really care, but I think it's important to have some city council perspective. I would like to see more community perspective, but I think that's more of an issue of just the previous conversation of the recruitment and retention than it is of the ratio necessarily.
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts on this?
Have there been any discussions with any of the people that used to attend meetings more regularly that have stopped, or with individuals that initially wanted to be on the committee, still showed some interest, and then haven't showed any additional interest? Has anybody spoken with any of those individuals or?
Yeah, so the initial explanations involved time, and I would say it was mostly time, but I've been wanting to follow back up again now that there has been more time, to see if there was anything more they would be willing to share about why they left, and or what they wish could have been different that might have allowed them to stay if it was something with the committee as opposed to an outside factor like time. So,
And do you mean, just to clarify, do you mean time as in like
their
their,
own
I mean their
time.
own situation, or like the time requirement, like number of meetings kind of thing?
I believe it's more of the like, people have families, and I mean, part of it might also include the timing of like pickup and stuff like that, but I honestly don't know. A lot of it was just, they had a lot on their plate already. And that could be in all kinds of capacities of, you know, physically needing to do something, be somewhere, mentally, emotionally, all of that. So then to follow up on what you said, Christopher, have been, I have heard from someone that they would appreciate having additional council members be able to participate. And so a suggestion that had been made was having one regular council member on the committee and then a rotational city council member, so that whoever wanted to participate could take turns and participate. I see several pros and several cons with that. How do people think of that option? Or does the way that it's set up with 3 council members or 2, like, how does that sound?
I mean, I can.
And that's open to anyone, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mean to put pressure on you.
No, you're good. I guess it doesn't really make a big difference to me. I would leave that more up to the council, whoever you want to send to this. If that's the same person every time, if that's someone different, I don't have a personal feeling one way or the other necessarily. I mean, I think my only concern with maybe having a rotating person is I feel like this committee already spends a lot of time kind of like rehashing things we've talked about previously, which I know sometimes, you know, we just need to revisit things, but I think that's my only concern with a rotating person is like, if they haven't been at or listened to or whatever the previous meetings, then we would just spend each meeting bringing them up to speed about what we talked about previously. So I guess like if they can, you know, commit to knowing what they're talking about, I'd be happy to do that. But I know we're all busy and unpaid and have jobs and lives and stuff. So I guess that's my only concern, but I don't have super strong feelings one way or the other.
Thank you for that. Zena?
Pretty much what he said. I think it would be good to have some continuity and some kind of like fidelity between who switches in and out. But other than that, I think that, yeah, we should just be all are welcome and, you know, let's see what issues and things like, that are important that we can tackle and get done.
Thank you for that. And to clarify, the reason why other council members can't be here is because it would be a quorum. And so you're stuck with the 3 of us until until next go around. So that was more of the reason why I'm bringing this up. Cool. Thank you for that insight. Anyone else want to comment on that before I move on to the next question? Okay. So we've thoughts on committee structure. Seems decent the way it is, especially because things have been inconsistent. So then regarding co-chairs, how does that seem to be working? Or is it not?
For me, it's really not, because I just don't have enough time to get that done well, and all the other projects and committees I'm on. Like, so it's really hard to be like, yeah, I can be co-chair. And I don't have the bandwidth.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So then in that case, do you think it works if we have volunteers who aren't you? Or is it better to just have the one chair?
I'm not trying to like dump all the work onto one person. I just, yeah. I don't know what would work best, or, I think that rotating worked when there was enough people, but now that there's so few, it's harder. And so I think that, like, between the other project work that I'm hoping that we're, doing, I just don't know how we can get all the things that we want to get done and keep switching co-chairs. And, I think that that's kind of, we get caught up in that a little bit, and then we have to go over a lot of information, or like, there's inconsistencies, things like that I think slow us down.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I know my goal has been wanting to give that opportunity to people if they wanted to co-chair. I definitely did not want to pressure anyone. And so if it's not working, then with we shouldn't do it. But please don't feel obligated to volunteer, Zena, if we do move forward with continuing to rotate. Any other thoughts on this?
Councilor Andrade, I'll just chime in a little bit. I think when we've talked about this in the past, some of the concerns about having council members on the committee or not has been around, the kind of the power dynamics that get formed there. Do people feel uncomfortable with members of the council providing comment, staff providing comment? Is this a committee of the community, or is it a committee of the council? And, some of that is going to be borne out by the structure. And I think anytime you've got a committee that's chaired by a city council member, that structure is going to be reinforced, right? So if one of the concepts is we really want this to be a committee that's more reflective of the community, one consideration might be that we look for a community member to chair the committee on a consistent basis that's going to get some comfort and some skills and comfort level more than anything on chairing the meetings. But that would also include then with that the committee chair isn't then also responsible for building the agenda and writing the memos and doing all of the meeting material prep, that could still be done with support from council members or staff or other members of the committee. And so maybe the definition or the responsibilities of chairing the committee change a little bit and are lessened. And that responsibility could go to a community member as opposed to a council member. Just as a thought, I'm more trying to provoke thought and what if, making any real suggestion there.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. To clarify, because it sounded like you were describing more or less what it is that we have been doing, but I might have missed something where a community member chairs the meeting, facilitates the meeting, and then the agenda and meeting packet and such gets built by others. And that others could be multiple people. It could be committee members, either of the council or not, or staff. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess what I've seen in like building the packets is that the committee chairs or co-chairs often are also preparing documents and writing up memos. And again, you've done a lot of that, the lion's share for sure. But to Zena's point that she made, she feels like it's more than what she could take on to chair, which I don't think means running a meeting. I think it's the work that goes into preparation for the meeting. where people may be reluctant to sign up for that. So again, it's maybe just a matter of terminology and expectations of committee members.
Okay.
But when we're
And that
down,
reminds me,
but like tonight, we're down to just 2 committee members that aren't on the city council right now.
Yeah.
When you talk about sharing that load, you're talking about between 2 people. And I think fairly consistently, we've only had, 2 to 3 non-city council members attending these meetings.
Mhm.
So that puts a pretty heavy burden on our non-council member committee members.
Agreed. And that's part of the reason why I had brought up the structure of the official membership portion of it, but perhaps that's not getting at the crux of the issue, which is we just need Zena.
I just thought that maybe this is a good opportunity to like connect with other people in our community and be like, hey, since this is, we're doing Veterans Day or this is an event, we can go to people and ask if they want to come bring their conversation to our meeting instead of having it be such the structure thing. And I find that for me, not just because of like my recent concussions, but email is just brutal. So like I want to be able to do it well, but between that and like again other projects, this card is giving me carpal tunnel. So it's like I just can't. But maybe this is like, hey, we chair this. Let's reach out to these people and see if they would like to come in and co-chair a meeting, and we can talk about this, or we can, that's just an idea.
Okay. So thank you for that. So what I'm hearing is that, well, time check, it is 6:23 p.m. So there's that real quick. But what I'm hearing is that like the Veterans Day event would be a great opportunity to be able to, for Inclusivity Committee members, if we're able to be there, to reach out to community members in attendance and say, hey, I'm part of the Inclusivity Committee. This is what we're about. You interested in coming? Cool, here's some information. And you're welcome to participate. Does that sound about right, Zena?
Yeah, like welcome to participate, but also bring their knowledge, their expertise, things like that. Like the Black historians, it's like, great, you're bringing something maybe we didn't know at, where we're actually more involved with people in our community, and we're like, hey, would you like to come co-chair this event this month, this kind of time, because this is, whether it's
So specifically reaching out to the organizations and groups there to like,
they would
gotcha.
be more hopefully inclined to like participate. It wouldn't just be an inclusivity committee, it would be more involvement from people in our city, and then I think it would make things a lot more interesting too, to be like, hey, we're having this person come, or these things, who's going to co-chair our next meeting, and
Okay.
like give an invite to people in our community to be more of a part.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. I have a better understanding now. Okay, so I'm thinking that this might be a thing to come back to again in the future to kind of see how things go. Sorry, I'm trying to process my notes real quick. I guess
Christopher had his hand up. Jessica?
Oh,
Christopher
sorry,
had his
thank you.
hand up for a minute.
Oh, it's okay.
Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Well, now I'm sort of rethinking what I was going to say, but I guess just from what Chris was saying, and this may not be what Chris was saying, so correct me, but it like I do almost think there might be some value to structuring the committee slightly more traditionally in terms of having a community member chair that has a tenure longer than one meeting, just so that there is some of that continuity and someone that can get, you know, sort of familiar and in the groove of chairing. Again, you know, we've seen issues with community members being able to, you know, have the time and commitment level to do that. But I just think that might be more appealing, because then and I don't know how long that person would last as chair. You know, if we still want to rotate it, they could do like, I don't know, 6 months or whatever, I don't know. But I just think, because then you only have to find one person that can commit to it for 6 months, as opposed to 6 people that can commit to it for 1 month. But I just know from like being a community member chair for the public art committee, I think that's worked well on our committee. I guess you should check with the committee members to see if they agree, but just like, you know, because that way I can just worry about working with city staff on the agenda, and I can check in with committee members, and then when we show up, we kind of know what's going on. And that way we don't kind of have to start from scratch every meeting. But that's not where we want to go with this committee. I think that it might be worth thinking about, because it has worked well for other things.
Thank you for that. I knew there was a note that I was missing when I was trying to process and it was stuck on the like, wait, hold on. Huh. Anyway, yes, no, definitely. That is definitely something I think we should revisit. Perhaps at, I'm thinking perhaps that's something to discuss more in depth, hopefully at our next meeting if we have more people. And that way, and I can send out an email as well to be like, hey, we're considering this. Please send thoughts to Chris, if that's okay, and Chris can compile them for us. Would that be okay, Chris?
That'd be fine.
Cool. Thank you. Note to self.
Councilor Andrade,
Yes.
just before we move on to the next topic, I just wanted to bring something up, and I don't know if we're getting ready to, but I just wanted to bring something up when we do get to that point.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you. So yes, I guess for now, let's proceed with the rotational just for now, so that we can get better thoughts from people, and if people are interested in the community co-chair, that we find out who's interested. So there's that, and that might be something to start at the new year as well, if it's too much with the holidays. And I know that's another topic that we should discuss, about moving our November and December meetings because they're both around holidays. Okay, so the final thing has to do, like I was trying to get to before, was the vacancy, and making sure that we're on the same page with council of how we would like to fill that. Was that what you were thinking of, Mayor Jones?
I know this is a separate topic, but that we can continue with that topic.
Okay. So as it stands now, I believe that applicants had agreed that questions being asked in front of the council was not ideal. Like in person during the interviews or whatever. I believe that and then I should have had the foresight to ask for the application. More or less, if I remember correctly, the application has basic personal information and a question about what diversity means to you. I don't know if Chris has that handy or not.
Chris had to step out for a second.
Okay. I unfortunately cannot look that up right now, but I guess I'd like to verify that the application that we had that everyone used to apply, except for I think Christopher, because he was a recommendation by the council, or sorry, by the committee to be approved by the council, appointed. So does it sound good that we're still good with that application? And that we request that questions are not being asked of committee members? Mayor Jones?
I feel like we got ourselves in trouble the last time because we basically scored or rated or somehow judged our applicants.
Uh-huh.
And just thinking any question you ask that you're thinking about judging someone on is going to potentially lead us to the same problem. It almost seems like the only answer is random acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm saying that that's preferred. I'm just saying that if we're asking questions and judging people based upon their answers, that seems like it could lead us to the same issue we already encountered once before.
Agreed.
Thank you for that. Zena, did you have more you wanted to say on that?
No, I think it's a slippery slope, and oh, sorry, I see someone has their hand up.
Oh, you're good. I can wait.
He's got a strong bicep.
Nah, go for it.
Well, I was also just gonna kind of agree where I have mixed feelings on this. I understand the concern and the problem, but I also don't necessarily see what this, like, if there is a solution. I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is a city committee, and being able to sort of be responsible to the public and have some of those discussions be public is the nature of government. And so I think if we are going to appoint people through an application and interview process, like I just don't really see what we can do about that. I think if you're not comfortable having the city council or having the public have that discussion, then then perhaps public service isn't something that is right for you. Which I'm not trying to exclude. It's just sort of my whole philosophy is just sort of, I think there are certain things you need to be comfortable with to do this kind of stuff. And, you know, my analogy I always use is like, if you can't deal with blood, like being a surgeon probably isn't for you. If you can't deal with fire, being a firefighter isn't for you. And so I guess that's a little bit of just, I think folks do need to somewhat be willing to have those very public conversations and be comfortable talking with the council and everything in order for this to work. So I think either we just need to accept that, or we need to do something completely different, like the mayor said, and just kind of randomly accept. But I also have concerns about that. So I would be very curious to hear feedback on what I just said, because I know it's not perfect. It's just that's sort of like, I guess my take on it is it isn't perfect, but it is just sort of the nature of public service and government, it feels like to me. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I hear and agree with both of those sentiments. And I think that I think perhaps if I'm analyzing this, what happened correctly, I think part of it had to do with not being told ahead of time
Gotcha.
that people, that certain questions would be asked, because I do know that I do remember there being said that if questions are going to be asked, then we should have had them written and sent to us ahead of time, because sometimes in the moment, like, it's just too much, especially when you're not expecting it. And if you're like in an environment you're not used to, and yet you also want to be there and to do well and to like, you want to do this thing, and yeah, you might not be comfortable yet, but you're hoping to be. So just another thing to consider. Councilor Nielsen, were you about to say something?
You know, I really do respect everyone's point of view, and I see the various facets of, you know, wanting it to be a genteel process that honors in every individual's voice and their abilities equally. But as a city committee, as Christopher just mentioned, it is difficult to not have there be something that a judgment of such, if that sounds kind of harsh, but an acceptable level of involvement and to be honest, a criteria somewhat of of a person's commitment to participate. And that's a difficult piece. But maybe if we had questions that they could have in advance, that you had mentioned, Jessica, which is a great idea, so that they could prepare. But I don't think that they're really, as a city committee, I think it makes sense to kind of talk about, you know, what that person brings to what would bring to a committee, what's their vision for and purpose for wanting to be a part of the committee. I think some of those questions make common sense in regards to involvement in an inclusivity committee. So I don't feel out of place for there being kind of a questionnaire of why and who you are and what do you bring to the committee, what's your vision for the committee, how do you see yourself contributing, what talents and abilities do you think would make you a good committee member. I mean, you don't want it to seem like a job application, but in a way you are somewhat putting yourself out there to say, this is what I offer, this is what I can contribute, this is what I bring to the table in this. And if we can find a way to do that in keeping with what a city committee organization is and application process is, as gently and as openly as possible, and I think that would be a good thing.
Thank you for that. Okay. So it sounds like, question actually first, Chris and/or Mayor Jones, recommendations regarding the application process sent to council. When does that need to be sent by? Is that by a November meeting or
We would be
a
opening,
December meeting?
we'd be opening up the application in November, accepting
Okay.
until January. Is that correct, Chris? And then bringing someone on in January/early February.
Yeah, ideally, the November council meeting is when we'd come to the council and state the positions that we're going to be opening up and open applications, and we'd take them through, yeah, that first week of January, just so we've got enough time to hold everything together and prep it for the January council meeting, which is when the selections are made.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Chris, because I cannot access this on my laptop or my phone at the moment since I'm on Zoom, do you have easy access to the Inclusivity Committee application to be able to read what questions are on there?
I don't, sorry.
Okay. Thank you anyway. Okay, so would we be comfortable recommending to council that, I guess, so here's the question. Are we looking for applicants to discuss, like to answer questions in front of council? And if so, what questions?
So
Because we have questions on the application itself, but
So we've generally moved away from the council members asking questions during the meeting. We've not done that for the last couple years, I think, or at least the last year and a half. But as we've had appointments and things made, we've really asked the council just to rely upon the 3 or 4 questions that are asked in the application and to just
Yeah.
make a selection. Or we've had,
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I meant specifically because we were talking about, I know that we haven't been asking questions, and I wasn't trying to imply individual questions. I meant like the same question of everyone. Because we did just discuss about how the that people should be willing to discuss these things. And so I wasn't sure if they meant, if that sentiment was meant like orally or in a written format. So that's what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, and again, I think the practice that we've been following is to just provide questions in the application that we feel like are questions that the council may want to know, and as they're making considerations of who should be on the committee, but to not provide time during the council meeting for counselors to ask questions, even if it's the same question. We've just not been doing oral questions and discussions with applicants for any of the committees we've been doing. We've kind of gone away from that.
Okay, thank you for that. So in that case, it sounds like we're good to go with the application.
Yeah,
Does that sound great?
I think what you'd have would be just getting the application out. When applications come in preparation for that January packet, you're going to have each council member receive a copy of all of the applications that came in. And then council members will just have to decide coming into the meeting on who they're going to vote for. You're still going to have a vote unless, of course, you've got, 2 applicants for 2 positions. But if you have 3 applicants for 2 positions, then there'd just be a standard vote of the council to fill those vacancies. So, but we would avoid any type of ranking or scoring. It'd just be an individual vote from council members.
Okay, thank you for that. Does that sound good to everyone? Looks like it. So it looks like we're good. It is 6:44. Really quickly, I'm gonna skip ahead really quickly just to figure out next meeting stuff. So that's agenda topic 6. So as of right now, November 22nd is when our meeting would be, but that is a tricky date due to Thanksgiving. So it sounds like we should move that date perhaps to the prior week. Does that sound reasonable and accurate, Chris, first?
Yeah, I would recommend avoiding I mentioned last night to the city council, it looks like we're going to try to squeeze in a meeting either on the 15th or the 22nd.
She's at 22nd.
Or sorry, 22nd or 28th, I think is what we were looking at. The normal date for this meeting would be the 22nd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we did meet as the council that night, it would be not an emergency meeting, but it'd be a 1-topic meeting. It'd just be to look at the bid proposal for the water reservoir. And the idea was to start that like a 7 o'clock. So it could be after the Inclusivity Committee meeting. So if the committee wanted to meet on the 22nd still, I don't see that overly problem.
Okay.
It'd just be a matter of if there's members of the committee that are going to be here or not.
Thank you for that. How do people feel about November 22nd? Will people be away and unable to attend?
Ironically, I will actually be here that week, but I won't be here the week before. So if we do it the week before,
Good.
I probably won't be able to join, but if we do it on the 22nd, I will be, but don't plan it around. It's better for everyone else on the 15th or something.
Okay.
You're one of 5 committee members here. We have to plan it
Well,
around you. Or we don't have a quorum.
Councilor Nielsen?
There are a lot of community service opportunities that week with being for soup kitchens and other things. So I would not be able to attend a meeting on the 22nd. I've got commitments for outside of, for those holiday community service pieces of scheduling. So that would be a hard one. I have 22nd and 23rd. Both those days are full of preparation in the community dinners and food banks and soup kitchens.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Councilor,
And for doing that work. See?
sorry, are there pressing topics that we would need to meet for in November? I guess maybe a better place to start. I mean, we've been pretty consistently meeting every month, but are there?
Well, yeah, I would say the training and budget, like we're gonna have to like race through some of that today. But the budget for the training, I would think, and then revisiting. Yeah, I mean, I think so, but I'm biased, obviously. I guess, thank you for that question. Mayor Jones and Zena, what's your availability? And also, do you think we should be meeting?
I have a lot of
I guess-
commitment on that
Mhm.
time as well, and service stuff that I need to be doing. So it would be really a difficult thing for me to do. But yeah. So I don't know. I know that it's important, but I just can't necessarily commit to the dates because I have so many other things going on.
Thank you for that and for the work that you're doing.
2 things. Given the holiday, given just the challenge of scheduling things, we might consider doing a meeting sometime between Christmas and Thanksgiving rather than before Thanksgiving, but that's one thought. And then whether or not we need a meeting, I'm not entirely sure. I think there's nothing super pressing. I did note what I was going to comment on earlier is that we haven't identified any dates or months that we wanted to highlight in 2023. And so at this point, if we don't meet in November, if we did meet in November, that would mean we were talking about something we're going to look at in February. If we don't meet then, if we meet in December, we're talking about something in March. And if we don't do anything, then we're looking at April.
Yeah, that seems like it would be what with like Black History Month and everything, that could be a really good one to highlight. But I mean, again, just depends on what kind of the vibe of the community is, and if people are just too swamped, I understand. But I think it would be a really good opportunity if we can make it work.
What if we, Councilor Andrade, we looked at a date, maybe that first or second week of December, to kind of split the difference between, so rather than trying to find a date in November and find a date December, at the end of both months, what if we met that first or second week of December and counted that as one meeting for the 2 months, and that could get us rolling into January.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you for that. Zena, sorry, did that sound?
I said that works for me.
Okay. And I know Mayor Jones seem to like that as well. Christopher and Counselor Nielsen, does that sound good to you?
It depends on the day. I mean, the idea sounds good. My availability depends on the day.
Okay.
Yeah,
How about we talk over email then, sending availability or.
You could put a doodle poll out, Counselor Andrade, and put a few dates out.
Thanks. I was just about to ask if that was allowed. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, we're coming up close on the end here, and we can talk about agenda item topics in the email. I can send out things that I have in my notes and ask for requests there. That's okay. And I'll also send out an email asking about co-chair responsibilities, unless anyone, Christopher, Zena, you're really, really, really wanting to co-chair. Go ahead and say so now. Otherwise,
I mean, I'm always happy to, but I would rather wait and make sure I can be at the meeting before I.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. It's been a long day. Okay, cool. Really quickly, gonna try to get some of that training and budget information in. I unfortunately, like I said, do not have, oh, actually, maybe I do. Okay, so the short of it is we need DEI training of some kind. On the agenda item summary is a list of ideas from people. And since then, I have reached out to the League of Oregon Cities and am going to be speaking with someone about the idea that Councilor Nielsen had brought up about potentially asking for facilitation help reviewing DEI videos from their DEI library and being able to process what we learned together, / asking them for their recommendations about trainings and stuff. So that information I do not have currently, but that is something on the list of options. Another thing is that I recently spoke with someone from Western Oregon University today, who does some trainings with the League of Oregon Cities, the Jedi 101 course that Counselor Nielsen had brought up, advertised through the League of Oregon Cities. And I had information on that, which is, so they do both a like 6-week open course that we could enroll in as individuals, or the council can agree to reserve spots for some of us. Unsure who as of now, because that's the council's decision, to be able to attend that course. And they also have, they're also willing to work specifically with our council to develop some sort of cultural competency training that we request. So those are those two options. I have more information on that, but that'll have to wait for another time. In the meantime, let me see if I can find it really quickly. No, I don't have it. Chris, if I remember correctly, our finance director said that we have a little over $8,000 left.
Yeah, I think
Sorry?
I think it's 8,300. Yeah.
Okay. That can go towards training for this fiscal year, Christopher.
I was just gonna ask, for these trainings, if it's something we individually sign up for, the council individually signs up for, and what happens if there's accidentally a quorum at a training?
We can.
I'm under the impression that we have to notice it.
Okay, so I guess that's just my only concern if we're individually signing up, is just making sure that we don't accidentally end up with a majority there or something, but that's we can deal with that later. I was just the only thought that popped in.
Just let me know if you feel that might happen and we can take care of the noticing on the staff side.
Okay, okay.
And I promise I will send out that information. I'm sorry we didn't really get to talk about this today, but I'll definitely have a lot more for us to discuss on this. Did anyone else reach out to their connections or to other places to look into training opportunities?
I just, oops, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I did, but I think people need more like dates and times that would work, and just more information about what we're looking for.
Okay. I unfortunately cannot answer that, and I don't know if anyone can yet. I mean, unless someone for sure, like if Chris specifically is like, yes, no, this is the thing that, I don't remember anything that the council has specifically said, this is the kind of training that we want.
I think we're going to discuss it in a future meeting.
Yes, or are you saying council would have to at a future meeting?
I think that we will, the Inclusivity Committee can talk about it in our next meeting, and then we can suggest a proposal, specific proposal to the council.
Yes, no, I agree, but I was trying to answer Zena's question about needing potential dates and times, which is why I said the council doesn't have anything, and that this is more of an exploratory discussion.
So then I agree with Chaz that, yeah, let's talk about exactly what kind of training and everything like that in our next meeting, and then that will point us in the right direction, and then we can
Yes.
kind of find dates and everything. So
Okay.
that makes a lot more sense.
Thank you for that. And I am going to encourage everyone to look at the things that are in the agenda item summary, because those are some starting places of what kinds of trainings we are interested in. Any other information that people would like to share about this or other topics before we adjourn?
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have
you.
a lovely evening. It is 6:58 and we are officially adjourning.
Thank you very
Good
much.
evening.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.